401k advisors want to build a scalable practice, but aren't always sure what to do next. Welcome to Outcomes, the podcast designed to help advisors think, make decisions, and cast a vision to create a business for the future. Here's your host, Ross Marino, financial planner, author, speaker, and CEO of Advisor2X.
Welcome to Outcomes, the podcast. Today, we are joined by Katrina Bell, president of ZUNA. Welcome, Katrina.
Hi, Ross. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Right off the bat, I have to ask, the name of your company is ZUNA. I had to Google it because I wasn't quite sure what that meant. Can you share what that means and why you named your firm ZUNA?
If you Google it, you'll get a few different definitions, but what we were going with is ZUNA means prosperity in Sanskrit.
And how long ago did you do that?
We launched a little over a year ago.
And did people respond to that with the name? Has it brought up different conversations, or how are you branding and leveraging that?
Yeah, we really haven't worked the meaning of the name into our messaging, but I think, there were a few comments in the beginning. We wanted something different. We wanted a simple name that people could remember. And we were not intending to be a traditional advisory firm. And so we wanted a name that represented that. So we didn't want to be, no offense, but to anyone, but we didn't want to be ZUNA Wealth Management or ZUNA Advisory, or we just wanted something that could better represent the services that we were going to ultimately be providing to our clients. And the feedback was good overall. There were a few people that made comments, but overall, people love the name, I think.
It is simple. It is easy to remember, but what would stand out to me, and I did it, I didn't know what that meant. So now it engages my brain. Right before I jumped on with you, I had spoken with Jeannie Fisher. And one of the questions that we do in the podcast is the magic wand question. And that is this magic wand that I swiped from my daughters, Disney certified, as I say, and princess approved. My daughters love it. And I ask people, if you had a magic wand, what would you change in the world? Now, I'm not going to ask you the magic wand question yet, but the way Jeannie Fisher answered it is she said she wished the world would have more empathy. And I instantly thought, boy, I wish I had more empathy. That is something I think about. But when I went to your website, you list your core values, and number one is empathy. So as soon as Jeannie said that, I made a note and said, I've got to ask Kat, why is empathy listed number one for you? Do you have a story or something in your past that you say, this is why I have to focus on empathy?
You really do go for the hard stuff first, don't you?
Oh, we do. This is not going to be boring. So we're diving right in, Kat.
No holds barred. Well, so empathy, first of all, I want to say that, none of us are Mother Teresa. And so empathy is something we have to work on every single day, right? People do things that are difficult, and it's sometimes difficult to find that empathy. And so you have to dig deep to get it. And for me, I can't really share the story completely, or I'll be sobbing, but I had someone a number of years ago. I went through a period of time for about 5 years that was very, very difficult for a variety of reasons personally. And I had someone who helped me and said that, and broke a rule to help me really, and said that they were helping me because their family had been helped many years ago. And this was a person who had much more hardship than I had ever seen. His family had come over on a boat from Cambodia and had just endured a lot of hardship. And this person told me they wanted to help me because of that experience. And it really resonated with me, and it stuck with me all of these years. That was a long time ago. And to this day, I'm very forgiving. I forgive people over and over and over again. And some people would say too often, but I just think that most people deserve it because we're not perfect, right? And I can't, my daughter would come out here and tell you that I can't, we have a pretty a serious homeless issue in Portland, and a lot of people know that, and a lot of people complain about it, and it's pretty heartbreaking. And you can drive around here sometimes and see families on the street with signs and their little kids, and you can see women, older women, younger women, veterans. I literally cannot drive by anyone without if I can't find a place to pull over, I have to turn around and go back and park. And not everyone, but if it's a family, if it's a woman, if it's a veteran, it's very hard for me not to help. And so I carry a little stack of 20s in my wallet, and we do that because I can't bear the thought of a family not being able to provide for their children. That just tears me up. And that is somewhat related to my story of someone helping me. So that's probably where it may be manifested.
Love that story. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I've recognized years ago how important empathy was, and it's because I was fortunate to marry well. 29 years being married, and my wife is one of those people that is just dialed in as far as empathy goes, and always has been as long as I could remember. Fascinated by it. We're going to go a little softer next, so thank you for opening with that question and being okay. It also says on your website, Kat isn't afraid to ask questions. And as someone who does a podcast, I'm big on questions. I love it. I think it's the key to unlocking any wisdom. So right now it's 2020. We're in a pandemic. What questions are you asking the most of the people you talk with?
Well, so when I saw your question, I mean, the first two things that came to mind are, so internally, we're asking a lot of questions at ZUNA. So when we launched this company, as I mentioned before, we weren't trying to create something we had already had or somewhere that we had already been. And so we wanted to create a better experience for the client. We wanted it to be more holistic, and we wanted to really be able to bring value and solve clients' problems and help them move their businesses forward, and not just do something because it was the way it was always done, or because it was the way that everyone else does it, or because we're trying to demonstrate our value. We really are looking at everything we do and saying, is this really providing value to the client? Do they want this? Do they need it? And is there a better way to do it? Are we just doing this because we've always done it that way? And so internally it's that. And then externally, it's taking those same questions to the clients. Like, how can we help you? What do you need? What are your objectives for your business over the next 3 or 4 years? Are you growing? Are you going to be shrinking? Are you adding a new vertical? I mean, what's going on, and how can we bring in the right resources to support that? And our team is more diverse, so we have legal and accounting and other types of partnerships where we're bringing others in to fill in on some of the areas that we don't do internally. But it's really just asking kind of those bigger questions, and not just, well, what's going on with the 401k plan? I mean, we get those calls. People want you to help them with the 401k plan, of course, but we try to pull it up a couple of levels and talk about the business first, and kind of go from there. So those are really the questions that we're asking. And throughout the pandemic, what that has led us into is being a resource on a lot of different things for clients that are things they want to know about. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, I partnered with one of the large local CPA firms here, and we did a session on PPP forgiveness, and had a great group of clients come, and prospective clients, and just really, they're all trying to figure out which time period do I use, which application can I use, all these various things. And so we're bringing things to the clients that they want to talk about. It's not just about, we do a lot of legislative updates and market updates, et cetera, but we're also bringing in a lot of other resources. So we just want to know more about their businesses.
Let's focus first inside the office. So you asked a lot of questions, and one of the pluses of the pandemic, and I just call them pandemic pluses. Whenever you go through change or you go through some type of strain or struggle or challenge, there is going to be growth that comes out of it. And we've had capacity because we can't do many of the things that we've done before. So it gives us the time to really look at things and ask, do we need to be doing this? Are there any changes that you could share that because of the pandemic and having extra time to look at things, you finally made a decision and said, you know what, we're going to adjust this. Here's something we wanted to either implement or change or modify, et cetera. What have you guys done?
We were so new when it hit. We started up last September, and we all sat in the conference room for the last time together, like on March 14th, I think, and decided we were going to go work from home that day. So that was our last full day together. And for a while, we've seen each other since then, and gotten together socially safe environments. So we were fairly new, so it didn't necessarily shift any thing that we were doing. However, it gave us a lot of validation for what we were doing, and we realized that we were in the process of bringing in a lot of clients and doing a lot of outreach and marketing. And we realized that, clients didn't need us right at that moment to take over their 401k plans necessarily, or their retirement plans, but they needed a lot of the other things that we were bringing to the table. And so we just shifted our focus on that for several months. And we were talking to clients about a lot of other things and helping them navigate what was coming out of the CARES Act, and dealing with all of the things that we've all been dealing with the pandemic. We're small and we're very agile, and working from home was no big deal for us, but for some of our clients, it was a huge deal, and they were extremely impacted, and they were trying to figure out all of that work from home stuff, and then just trying to figure out how to keep employees engaged and support them. And, there's just so much going on. We just really feel like the pandemic experience validated what we wanted to do. And then to your point, we can all work more, right? We don't have to commute. We probably work more hours than maybe we should. And so it gave us time to, refine processes and work on getting our processes into our systems and really just get ready to scale. So
I see it as a great bonus being open for, let's say, a year or a short period of time, and then all of a sudden having the capacity to look at your procedures and either validate what you've been doing. And now you're able to expand the conversation with clients and prospects. And that's one of the opportunities that I see advisors taking advantage of. And I think it's great. You can sit back and kind of circle the wagons and say, I'm just going to talk to my people and make sure everybody's okay. Or you can recognize that disruption always brings opportunity. What do I need to be doing right now? So a pretty cool time to get out and tell people your story and launch the new firm and move forward. And I know part of what you talk about and what I knew you for is sustainability and ESG. So that probably didn't happen overnight. It's a long learning curve, and you usually have to be invested somehow in it, or at least my experience is when I meet people that are passionate about sustainability and these types of funds, there's some drivers behind that. So can you share why that means a lot to you?
Yeah. So you're right. For me, it's very personal to start, right? So to your point, so I just the way that I raised my children. I mean, my children went to a Montessori school from toddlerhood through middle school, and in that culture, for people who may be listening who have gone through Montessori school, I mean, sustainability is just kind of built in, and a lot of those other things of diversity and inclusion, all those things are really built into the Montessori culture. And so I raised my kids where they couldn't take disposable lunch items to school. We recycled. We didn't use plastic water bottles. To this day, my daughters, when they go to the store, they refuse to take bags. I mean, we live that in our house, and we always have. We're not perfect. I mean, I have a fuel efficient car, and some other things around the house that are energy efficient, but that's always been a part of our life. And then on top of that, my daughters are Black, and we have always, race and discussions about race and inequities, and advocating for my daughters has always been a huge part of my life as well. And that's become a big piece of the sustainability movement now. In the beginning, it was really just more about carbon emissions and green, and with everything that has gone on in recent times, and just the way the environment is right now, some of those other things are coming more into the discussion. And so for me, it's personal, and then I started doing some work with ESG with clients when I was at my prior firm. So when you invited me to speak at Excel on it, and that was one of the early presentations. I mean, prior to that, the conference I went to prior to that, there was one presentation like at the crack of dawn, where after a night of a social event, and like me and like 12 people were there. And then when I came to Excel that time, we had good turnout. I think like about 60 advisors were in the room, and people were engaged and asking questions. But still, it was, that wasn't that long ago. That was about a year ago. And
Right.
it's really just exploded in the last year into just having more advisors interested and wanting to learn about it, and having more openness to including it in their practices, or at least considering it. People just want to know more. And then joining ZUNA, that was part of it for me. ZUNA, beyond just providing what we thought was a better client experience, and was about values and culture. So that's baked into our firm. We are owned three men, 3 women. So we have equal ownership of our holding company. The RIA is actually majority female owned. We're not all white. And so all of that, it's in our marketing materials, that sustainability, diversity, equity, inclusion are one of our, values, and it's part of our firm. And so I'm grateful that I found a group of people to align with that are committed to that as well. And so for us, it was a no-brainer. It was going to be a part of the practice. And so it's been sped up just by the industry, really, and interest in it. And so we're really excited about that.
I love that it is speeding up, and most people have to go through some type of experience or change for their eyes to be open to look at things differently. And that's just human nature. It's part of it. We have something in common. My 2 daughters have brown skin. My wife and I are white. They're 14 and 17 now. I started seeing the world differently, because once you all of a sudden have children with brown skin and you go out and you realize in many places there isn't any brown skin.
Right.
And it's really strange. And I will say that from the people around us, nobody cares.
Right.
Literally nobody cares. It was barely a novelty back then because nobody cared. But you do find out that, yes, there's a lot of white. And when I did the first Excel 401k, it was 2015, I put the agenda together. I'll be short on the story. I made it down to speaker number 18. I looked at my list, Excel spreadsheet, and there was only one woman on there, Sherry Fitz. And I panicked and said, oh my gosh, all I have is a bunch of white guys. And I called Sherry. I said, Sherry, I need help. I got 17 white guys out of 18 speakers, and I don't even know enough people. And she said, I got you. And we took care of it. And then I used to make the joke that in our industry, diversity means some of the white guys are under 50. Mm-hmm. Right. And I told that to Joe DeNoyer, and he said, oh, I got a better one. Some of the white guys don't wear blue blazers. I'm like, you have one-upped me, Joe. Yeah. I'm like, that is awesome. But we know it, and we can joke about it because we're trying to do something about it. So people realize it, your eyes get opened after time. And I think we're now at that shift where if you don't bring up diversity and inclusion, and I'm now going to throw in ESG funds into there, if you don't bring that up into the conversation of what you're doing as a company, it now becomes a negative. Do you think we've made that switch where we have to start talking about it regardless of how we feel about it?
I think we do, although I would say that I also think that it needs to be genuine. So I think that people can see through the blanket statements that go out and that people include in their marketing materials. And I think that if you don't live it and try to put it into action, and look, I mean, none of us are perfect. Everyone is learning right now together, and it's really difficult. Some of the conversations are difficult to have, but just be honest and real. And if you are just saying it to say it, I think that people are going to see through that. And maybe people who care about that aren't your people if you can't, it can't be true to the topic. So,
well, I certainly have a picture of my wife and daughter on my desktop, and you see it when you come in to do a meeting with me. So we have a filter right up front. If I'm not a good fit for you because you're a certain type of person, you're going to know as soon as you look at the monitor for the picture that's up there. But it's interesting how people react over time. But for the most part, as I said, nobody cares. Nobody seems to care, or the ones that do care, they're not talking. And you know what? I'm actually okay with that. Keep it to yourself. So it's fine.
I've been like that too. I've tended to put it out front. I've tended to, in relationships with people, I don't know, I just want to make sure that, that there's a fit there. And so I'm pretty direct about getting that out there just so that I can see the reaction. So,
well, I know ESG is getting more and more press, and you can share about a new designation that's coming up. Would you mind telling us a little bit about that?
Right. Yeah, I can't say a whole lot, but so we're very involved with the ARA, the American Retirement Association, as you know, and I'm on the Napa Leadership Council, and one of my partners is very involved in ASPA, and we were honored that we were asked to participate in creating content for a designation program called the ESGK that NAP is going to be launching in 2021. And so we are partnered with Leaf House Financial, who is really wonderful, and too many really wonderful sponsors for me to name, but all, some of the largest, asset managers in the business who are, great partners to us as well, are participating in contributing to that content. So we're really excited that will be launched sometime in probably the spring of 2021.
Good news to hear. I had spoken to someone recently who had brought up a topic that is related to what we're talking about, and their first comment was, "Oh, we have so far to go." And sometimes I blurt, and that's a situation I blurt, and I said, "Stop. You can't complain here. Look at what's going on right now. We now have ESG funds where a designation is being created. It's being talked about. So whatever's going on right now, let's do it. Then figure out what's next. But let's not get carried away by what the perfect world would be, because it never will be. But let's at least look at what's going on right now. And as you said, it wasn't even on conference agendas years ago. And all of a sudden, it's popping up as sessions. People are coming. It's getting talked about. Here comes the designation. So it's begun where it's a conversation. And even the people that aren't genuine, at least they're talking about it.
Right. And I'm not saying you have to believe in sustainability to work with the funds, because in reality, this is a values, it's a values-based approach, and it's for the client. So you're trying to help the client do something that adheres to their values. I mean, the whole way I got involved in it is that, I had my personal history, and I had collected clients who I had a lot of alignment with in values, because that's just how I tend to operate. And they started saying to me, so Katrina, when can we get investments in our 401k plan that align with our company values? And so that's what it's about. It's the values of your clients, and how can you help them implement those values in a structured, compliant way. And so that's what it's all about. It's not about the advisor or what the advisor thinks about ESG. It's about the client. So
perfectly said. We serve, and we want to help them align their plan with their values.
Right.
So here you are, a year into your new practice. you're certainly motivated, driven, and executing a business around your values. I'd imagine you've been doing this a long time, and maybe there was a time when you weren't always able to do that. Would you mind going back 5 years, 10 years, and contrast how you're operating today versus maybe what you were doing 5 or 10 years ago?
Well, I would say that the big difference is more engagement with the clients on a different level. And so it's, instead of showing up, for example, I have a client meeting next week, a committee meeting, and I, in the past, we would have just created a 50-page report with, all of the various things that are all the clients are getting that quarter, unless there's some unique, other topic that needs to be covered. But usually it was pretty generic. These are the things, the reports are done. We're going to go out. We're going to go through the books. And now it's more about, I'm having a quick huddle with the CFO this afternoon, and just to say, hey, these are the things I am thinking for Wednesday. And these are all things that we have talked about. We know there are issues we're working on, et cetera, initiatives. And so that the meeting will be very focused on these initiatives that we're working on. And, we do the investment due diligence, right? We do that every quarter, and clients know that. And if there's a problem, they know about it. And they have access to all the information they need. But when we have that meeting, it's not me flipping through a 50-page report, giving them a history lesson on what happened this last 3 months, because they already know, because we've already done outreach with our market commentary. We've alerted them if there are any issues with funds, if we're going to discuss fund changes, or great, we'll do that at that meeting. But the meeting it's different. It's a different conversation that I'm having, and a different experience for the clients.
How about a shout out to a vendor, a product, somebody you're working with outside of your company that you think is doing good work and really making a difference out there?
Only one.
Got to pick one, but it doesn't have to be your favorite, so we won't offend anybody.
One is really hard because we have some amazing partners. One is
mention
really
a few.
hard.
You can mention
I
a
can
few.
mention a few.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, so I would say that I've got on the record keeper side, I mean, we work with a variety of firms, and they all have their unique strengths, and so I don't want anyone to feel like they're not important because they're not mentioned. But Katrina Bell at Principal Group is a great partner for us. She constantly brings ideas and suggestions and help, and really appreciate that. And they do a great job for the clients as well. I also really appreciate Kirsten Curry at Leading Retirement Solutions in Seattle. She's fantastic. She's a great resource that I feel like I can call when needed. And actually, I have my own personal solo K with them. So that shows you how confident I am. They do a great job and provide great service. And there aren't many smaller record keepers out there anymore. So I like that. And then on the asset manager side, JP Morgan's a great partner. We work with Ben Travers, and he's constantly bringing materials and resources to us, and we just really appreciate that.
When you brought up Dina Bell, I wrote down ideas and suggestions. So
Yeah.
she's bringing new things to you to help you think. And really, that's what we need to do with our clients. And then with Ben, you said materials and resources. So I love pointing out that the people that we work with, that we appreciate, that's what they're bringing to us. Things we may not know about, things we may not have thought of. And that's the same thing we have to do with our clients. And has there been anything throughout, say, the last year that you've launched your firm that really surprised you of, boy, that worked out better than I thought, or I didn't expect that, or if I could go back 12 months, I think I need to do this differently?
Oh, wow. To go back to kind of getting the validation for the business model, I think in the beginning, it was really scary to do things different, right? It's like, okay, these clients are used to seeing this 50-page report. Like, oh gosh, what am I going to do without handing them a 50-page report, and and going through that every quarter, and just in terms of delivering financial wellness, we have a different approach there. I mean, everyone's not getting the same service model necessarily. It's, we think there's not a one size fits all solution. And sometimes we can do it internally and that's a good fit, but sometimes we're bringing in these amazing partners who could provide financial wellness too. And so it's hard to do things differently and not have that fear that people aren't going to like it, right? And so actually starting to implement the new service model and seeing just the deeper engagement with clients, deeper relationships with clients, because you're talking about things that are important to them. And so that has been, I guess, validation, but also surprise in that I don't think I realized how quickly I would see the positive feedback and response from that.
I think it just shows that people have depth, and if we will approach them and allow that depth to come out and have them talk about things that matter and really help them think about where they need to go, that a lot of people, they're going to jump on that conversation and they're going to enjoy it. So that's probably a really cool experience to watch people that going in, you're not really sure how they're going to respond. And it is scary when we're trying something new. And if it backfires, we might lose a client. Man,
Right.
It takes a lot of work to get a client. So if we go in there, that's a scary thing, especially if they're an A client, whatever that means to you. If you're going to go in and try to shift gears a little bit, there should be some fear and trepidation there. I think that's completely normal. And then to see it, that's pretty cool experience. So thank you for that answer. But now we get the big question. So I told you we'd come back to it for you. It's magic wand time. So you now get a wave of the magic wand. If you could change anything in this world, what would you change, Kat?
I have to say racism. There's no question.
Can you give me a little more? I'm not going to let you just end with one word.
There's so much pain and suffering going on right now caused from that. And I can't be truly happy or settled until that is no longer a thing, because like I said, it's part of my life.
It is one of those issues that I think is really hard for people like us to understand. Thank you for sharing that. That is a wonderful way to close. And thank you so much for being part of the podcast today.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Outcomes. Subscribe now to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Advisor 2X. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service providers with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.